Okay, welcome. It's the 1st of May, but we're talking about April, so slightly confusing, but we're doing this just a week later than we normally would because of the Easter holidays that feel like they lasted forever in a good way, I think. Hi, Andy. How are you?
I'm good, thanks, Luan. How are you?
Good. Yeah, good, thank you. Sun's shining. It's May. We've got bank holidays. No one knows what day it is.
Good times. Good times.
Good times. Okay, so thank you for joining us. If you're watching us live or if you are watching the recording, we know many of you watch this regularly every month, so we will get straight into it in a second. And if you get your slides ready, I can't see them on the screen at the moment. No.
I think we should. Hold on one second.
We were chatting beforehand and didn't quite get ready, and then the countdown came on.
Yeah, let me stop sharing again. Yeah, that's weird. We should.
Here we go.
You good?
Add to the scene. That's what we need to do.
All right.
So this is us. I'm sure many of you have met us before, but just in case you haven't, Andy and I have been doing these together for, it's going to be 5 years in September that we've been doing these every month, bar one in the summer. We run through all the social media updates, platform by platform. We will start by looking at some insights and latest trends data. This is not meant to overwhelm you. We are not trying to give you a huge to-do list of everything that you need to change about what you're doing in the world of social media. We just both spend our time reading the news every day and come together to share this with you so that you can grab everything that you do need and ignore the stuff you don't in an hour.
Love it.
Yeah.
I was going to say, it's clear. It's clearly start time because the church bells are chiming, isn't it?
Sorry. I've got my windows open. It's sunny.
Love it.
They are slightly delayed. So you can, if you move the slides on, Andy, you're going to control them. You can download a copy of these slides so that you've got them. Don't frantically scribble notes as you go through. Take a photo of that now or check in on the recording afterwards and you can get access to them. If you are not connected to us, this is us at the front of a room at our annual event last November. Scan our QR codes and make sure that you're connected with us on LinkedIn. We have got the event coming up in November, which will be the 12th of November. But before that, it is Social Day in London on the 20th and the 22nd of May at Phantom Peak. Still haven't quite worked out where that is in London, but I will check my map the day before. Do you know where?
Yeah, it's pretty far east. So it's like Canada Water. Well, basically by the, I still call it the Millennium Dome, but the O2 Arena, whatever it's called. There, basically.
There. Yeah. Okay. Andy and I will be there on the Tuesday and the Thursday. On the Tuesday, we are opening the session, the live sessions at 12 with social media updates. Everyone will be joining in the morning for networking and games and lots of activities going on. And then we will be back on the Thursday afternoon co-hosting a B2B series of events. We've got some panels and I think, Andy, from looking at the descriptions, you and I are going head to head on a discussion, is what the description has said.
I wasn't too sure whether we were going head to head. That was a surprise to me. We sometimes have differing viewpoints, but principally we're quite aligned. So we'll see how that goes. But it's going to be a very interesting discussion about social media analytics and data stuff. So I think this is both our kind of heartland and the things that we love to talk about, isn't it?
It is. And if you do want to join the event for 3 days, you can get £150 off your ticket with the code LuanAndy150. And our B2B track is very much a taster for what will be happening in London on the 12th of November. And we will be announcing the full speaker lineup at the end of May after this one.
Yeah, look forward to that. And the final little bit, I just added this to the deck. Sorry, Luan.
That's all right.
So the final thing that you should know is that you've now got analytics in Adobe Express. So, and the only reason I'm showing this is because we had so many people asking for this, understandably, because we need to understand our data to then build on the success. So our friends at Metrical, so it's a very, very useful product. We've now integrated their product directly inside of Adobe Express. So now you can analyze not just your organic social content, your paid social content alongside your blog and your website performance. So you can more holistically have a look at your digital marketing performance across multiple channels, identify those opportunities, etc. And the bit that everyone loves, and when I shared this, because we launched it just this week, and when I shared this in a launch post, the bit everyone loved the most is the fact you press a button and download and export a report in PDF or PowerPoint, all formatted in your brand. That's quite cool to allow you just to complete reporting for clients or stakeholders, etc. And the best bit, and the final bit, I will say, well, two very, very important bits. One, it doesn't matter whether you publish content through Adobe Express or anywhere else. If you publish natively, whatever your choice is, all of your data will come back here. So that is really important. So you're not like being hamstrung and limited to having to schedule your content at all, which is great. And two is that not only can you do all of your planning and publishing in Adobe Express for free, you can also then analyze, use all this data stuff for free. So for one brand, so if you only got one Instagram, one Facebook, one LinkedIn account, do it all for free. So that's pretty darn compelling. And sorry for the slight promo announcement. It's just so nice to be able to do all this stuff for free to allow them to be incredibly accessible for people, because I couldn't do this when, you know, I was a founder of a business, because you kind of got to make money. But obviously working for Adobe makes it a bit easier, and we can be a bit more flexible. Hopefully you find this useful. Anyway, that is enough promo stuff. Let's get into the goodness. So you've joined us probably before, and hello and welcome again. Feel free to pop any messages in the chat, any questions, comments, etc. Happy to take them live. So let's go into some data and trends. We'll have a discussion, and then we'll go network by network and look at the updates that you need to know. So number one, we talk about YouTube quite a lot. And I think the most interesting thing about YouTube, or one of the most interesting things anyway, is the reach into older segments and older audiences. And I think whilst most marketing content and like reports tend to look at like Gen Alpha, Gen Z, all that kind of stuff, actually, you know, many businesses are not selling to that audience. And in fact, the audience that actually has money are your older audiences. So I think this then puts into reference like some of the opportunities that we have. You know, Facebook is still strong here. YouTube is particularly strong here. So it's really interesting to see particularly the growth of YouTube into those older audience segments. So if you're targeting slightly older segments, then YouTube is incredibly powerful for that. And the reason YouTube is getting so powerful is because it's the most device independent social platform there is. So if you looked at the consumption of like TikTok or Instagram or even LinkedIn, it's predominantly on mobile, nowhere else. You know, yes, a little bit on desktop. Whereas YouTube consumption is such a broad mix across different devices. People watching on desktop, lots of mobile with YouTube Shorts, but increasingly more on TV. So on your, you know, when you're kicking back, and I think you shared this before in a previous roundup, Luan, like on a Friday, you're catching up with your subscriptions, watching your streaming TV on your smart TV. And this share that YouTube has of the overall TV streaming market continues to grow. Last time we looked at this data 2 months ago, it was 9%. So it's amazing how quickly YouTube is gathering momentum here. So anyway, TLDR, as I often say, lots of opportunity in YouTube, not just across shorts. We know that's great for reach too, but thinking across multiple formats, short and long form content too. Right, I'm going to pause there. Luan, what's your...
I think YouTube is one of those platforms that does have such a wide opportunity in terms of demographics. It's something that I've been talking about more recently, and actually I'll pop it into the chat later. I saw that there is a tool where you can take your TikToks and your Reels and automate them through to Shorts. So for those of you that have been doing TikToks and Reels and haven't gone, oh, I could curate a YouTube channel with that content, there is, I think, a 3-month free trial of being able to kind of repurpose your content. So that for some could be a really quick win if you've been concentrating elsewhere and not really used YouTube too much. And also I think the other area that I was running a session and we talked on YouTube was podcasting, and how huge that is on the YouTube platform as well. And again, I think YouTube as a platform for podcasting is bigger than Spotify and some of the others. So that's also like an area for people to look at. So not one we always talk about in terms of the platforms and features, certainly not one I don't think either of us are hugely active on. Maybe missed a trick a few years ago, but is certainly one that should be on your action list at some point.
Definitely. Also, nano influencers, the fastest growing influencer category. Some data from eMarketer came out here. And nano influencers typically between 1,000 to 5,000 followers. And I think, we're seeing a general shift in influencer marketing. And I'm certainly noticing this, maybe because my kind of narrow frame of reference in the B2B space certainly seems to be happening a lot more. Spend is up. We're seeing more people start to become influencers in that space. But the point is that like influencers are starting to change as how we, and I actually think the name should change, to be honest, is we're changing how we're seeing it from celebrity endorsement, where it started. Now it's maturing into genuine advocacy, whereby we have, user generated content or people that are genuine advocates of our product or service or whatever it might be. That's where a huge amount of opportunity exists. Yes, being able to work at scale with enough nano influencers to make an impact, that's a challenge. The platforms are trying to do some stuff to help that challenge, however, so we're going to talk about that in a second because there's 2 updates related to that. But I think broadly, as we're thinking about how our marketing strategies will evolve and how we'll drive reach, when we see that ad costs are increasing, SEO is in an interesting juncture. And of course, social media still has, when we're posting directly to social media, we can't just focus on our own channels as our primary focus. We need to think beyond that, think of, other people's feeds and how we get shared by other people. So I think there's a lot of opportunity here personally. Luan, what's your take?
I mean, I think this is a good thing that for us to consider that influencers don't always need to be the celebrities, and that there is huge value with the nano and the micro, the smaller influencers who, if you look at the pros and cons of these, like very often have a really loyal audience, a niche as well. So that, has more benefits, that they are potentially more trusted and engaged with their audience than the big numbers. And I'm certainly seeing in my feeds a lot more influencer campaigns. And I think in particular, because I spend most of my time on LinkedIn, that thought leader ad format, where you can see that a post is being paid for by an organization as well. But I think it's good, it's very transparent as well. And I think there's some organizations doing some really clever stuff with nano and micro influencers, like the people I'm already following doing these campaigns, which is what it's all about.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, it's interesting. You're seeing that growth too on LinkedIn, because it's pretty much every third post I see is like a thought leadership post. So really encouraging. Overall engagement rates. So this is from Buffer. They looked at these 8 platforms, analysed 8 or 9 million posts, I think it was. So it was a pretty sizable study. Oftentimes when you look at data from different sources, there are some variants, but certainly what I have been noticing of late is a lot of reports similarly calling out how strong LinkedIn is right now from an engagement rate perspective. So I found that really interesting. Ultimately, engagement rates seem pretty strong across multiple platforms. Fascinating to me how low Instagram is here. Other reports have put it as low, but I don't know what your take is on that.
Yeah, I looked at this one. Obviously pleased that LinkedIn has the highest engagement rate, but also, so I've got aeroplanes going over now. Instagram, I think, is lower because they have talked to us about how they are focusing on shares or sends, and that there's more activity going on kind of in DMs and groups and kind of behind the scenes. So therefore their kind of public engagement might be less.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Yes, sounds like you've got multiple times going over your house. What's going on there?
You're an airfield.
That makes sense. Overall time spent on social platforms. All right. Now, if you've joined us before, this data won't be hugely surprising to see that TikTok continues to dominate here. Of course, YouTube continues to be strong. So this is reflecting time spent over numbers of years. So we can see how time spent on TikTok continues to grow, continues to dominate. YouTube continues to be strong as well. Where we're seeing declines is in X. Everything else, there is more time being spent across all platforms. And like we always say, more time spent on a platform, more opportunity for your content to be seen, etc. So again, a lot of the core platforms performing incredibly well. I wish LinkedIn would surface this data. It would be really useful, because it would be really interesting if we could kind of correlate those platforms where there's strong amounts of time spent with strong engagement rates, which you would typically think there is a correlation between the two. But either way, if you look at the ones that are performing well here, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, Insta, you'll typically see engagement rates being strong here. Again, Instagram seems a big anomaly to me in this one. So curious to know if anyone on the chat, whether they've seen big dips in engagement rates on Insta, for example.
Only because I presented it in a training last night. Social Insider's Instagram benchmarks report had shown a 28% year-on-year decrease in Instagram engagement.
That's interesting.
But I can't remember what all the other platform numbers were. So in socialinsider.io has got some good data on that.
And I think that tracks from what Instagram have been self-reporting anyway, that more engagement is shifting to DMs and private messages, people less willing to comment publicly in a conversation, more willing to DM something to a friend. That's something we'll actually talk about more later. And then our friends at Metrical came out with some very interesting LinkedIn data. They really went into this, which was fascinating. So,
sorry, just to confirm, this data was from pages, not profiles, I think.
That is very interesting. Okay, cool.
I double checked that it was from, it looked when I've read it a couple of times that it is data from pages, not personal profiles.
And that would make sense given the kind of data that we get out of this. So what is fascinating is that Metrical reported a really steep increase in the number of clicks year over year. So this is 24 versus 25, and see how many things are up in 2025 versus 24. But clicks have been really strong. And I wonder if some of that's linked to both the performance of company pages, because LinkedIn seem to be investing more in this. And Luan, because you're very close with LinkedIn clients, I'm curious in your takes and all this too.
Again, I had a look at this. I think I recall correctly that when it means clicks, it doesn't necessarily mean link clicks. It could be clicks on, for example, the image, or through to an article, or through to a newsletter. So they had actually defined clicks and then link clicks separately in this data report.
Yeah, exactly. And I think this is, but the click data is very interesting, because that denotes some encouraging engagement, that people are, we're seeing strong engagement rates on LinkedIn already. And now we're seeing people, this is quantified in another data source, that are taking some form of action, whether it's flipping through a document post or whether it's going to a newsletter. I think that's really encouraging. Impressions is good. And if this is related to pages, which is a very interesting call out, Luan, then it's encouraging to see maybe LinkedIn are starting to put a bit more time into LinkedIn pages. My advice over the last couple of years has been like, it's not really a focus area, but I'm curious to know what they define as huge here. Some interesting here.
So this is by the number of followers of the company page. And it's quite interesting because, again, I've been doing this week. When you look at Instagram benchmarks as well, you tend to find that there are different engagement rates. These averages appear in these reports for small accounts versus large accounts. The exact numbers behind these I can't remember, but it's basically a low number of followers versus a huge number of followers, which will be probably your Adobes and your IBMs and your Microsoft. And that I think it's important to know that there is a difference here, because you probably get this question all the time as well, Andy, like, what's the benchmark I should be looking at? And my caveat is always, as you know, the answer's in your own data. Look at your own data. But if you need to look at industry reports because your colleagues and leadership teams are asking them for them and you want some comparison, there is these nuances now. And I like the fact that we've got these nuances. It's not just a percentage rate overall. There is a difference as you grow. what it does say in this metrical report is that perhaps some of the difference between the small versus the huge is that a small company page, probably a smaller business, is probably posting less content on their page than a big one, hence the impressions and the click differences as well. So it's not purely like for like in terms of content, they're just comparing sides.
Yeah, that makes sense. So TLDR is engagement rates are pretty strong. Link clicks or clicks in general, specifically link clicks, doing well, and company pages might well be getting more focus and attention from LinkedIn than previously, given that impression seems to be growing on some segments here, particularly those with larger numbers of followers. Similar story with engagement, which we saw from the other data there anyway. And again, a very large jump in those huge accounts. So a very, very large numbers of followers. I don't know what, like you said, what the definition is here, but I think this is overall encouraging all round, I think.
Yeah, and again, I'm going to make an assumption here that the larger company pages, larger followers potentially, and we'll come on to this in the updates, invested in the the premium company page option, which has an automation of your followers from people that engage with your post. So I would guess that did happen around 2024 when there is this big leap with some of them. So it's not splitting out premium company pages from regular company pages, but I would expect that is why we've seen a leap.
Many of your clients taken up premium company pages. LinkedIn have been saying it's the fastest growing product right now.
Yes, and I would encourage it because I think for $99 there are some good benefits and it's worth a test.
Interesting. Yeah, we'll talk more about that later on. But I think that could be some fascinating guidance. Year-on-year change, we've already seen this. So likes and shares are a little bit down across the board. I think I can certainly identify with some of that too. Interestingly, slightly different for huge accounts, but again, maybe your point about premium company pages is helping the huge accounts, which have definitely upgraded their account, which you would think. So kind of backing some of your thinking there, Luan. This is probably no surprise really to anyone, but like when you're looking at like overall video growth on LinkedIn, it's incredibly strong. So video views up 52%, watch time up 68%, that kind of thing. And again, lots of clicks on video orientated content too. So everything up across the board, but I think anyone that's joined one of these calls before, probably no surprise at all. It's just another data point referencing how important LinkedIn video is right now. But the thing I can't validate, and I'm curious to know if you, Luan, or anyone on the call has a take, is like all of the video I do is on a personal account, right? So curious to know like if there are any like brands that are spending time investing in video content on their company page, because maybe that yields some additional benefit. I don't know.
I don't know the answer to that, but I think again within this report it said, because LinkedIn is focusing on video, we're seeing more video, and that's why the metrics are going to go up overall as well. I think one of my challenges is a lot of this data is, of course, the data that's available, and it's about impressions and visibility. What we should add is that if you're running a business and you have objectives, don't forget that that's only part of the funnel, and you need to have a look at, opportunities and sales and leads and everything else. It's not all top of the funnel metrics.
Yeah, absolutely. And I thought this was really useful as well. So this is the final bit from this data before we move on. But yeah, feel free to screenshot this because actually I think this is genuinely useful. So when you look at different post types perform differently and format matters. And we speak about this quite a lot. And I think this builds on your point about knowing your objectives and knowing the right tactic to apply for whatever your objective is. So some content will perform better from an impressions standpoint. That's where typically, video is very strong from impressions. But interestingly, the anomaly here was how well polls performed, which is a very curious thing. Definitely something I haven't started testing this yet, but they were huge like 18 months ago. So clearly in the data somewhere, there's something very interesting happening with polls.
I think it was one of those things from observation, but I think there was a podcast from people at LinkedIn as well, like they were downgrading them a bit, because I think when people started using polls, they were a bit spammy and light-hearted, and were related to, like, you know, use a heart if it's this, and use a smiley face if it's that one. Whereas I think the polls that I do see now do feel a bit more meaningful and, you know, have a purpose behind them. And I think for anyone that's using polls, they're using them in a way that they then follow up with people who vote in certain ways. So I think it's just got a bit more intentional rather than spammy.
Well, the action here is experiment with polls. Yeah, see if it works out. But yeah, format matters. Different formats yield different results. All right then, Luan, take it away.
Okay, what have Meta been up to? They are, as we've talked about, influencers. And this is, for me, quite similar to what you find in TikTok, is being able to use the platforms to find partners to work with. Interestingly, I've done a couple of guest lectures on this topic, and I always put up all these tools that you could use for finding influencers. And there's always a student that says, so which one should I use for my assignment and I should look at? And I always say, well, none of them. Go away and follow the feed and understand your network and your community, and you'll identify them organically. However, these tools are really useful if you are doing a presentation, a business case, or looking in a new area that you're not so familiar with. So to be able to find those potential partners, collaborators, influencers in app, I think this is a good shift. Meta, remember, Meta is not just Facebook, and it's not just WhatsApp and Instagram. It is a whole family, and they have been adding AI features into their apps. They are now launching a standalone AI chatbot to their EU users. So they are launching these as standalone products, as well as features within the apps that we regularly use.
There's an interesting thing happening here with Meta now releasing this as like a standalone app as well. So like Meta AI and ChatGPT now looking to go after like having a social media network associated to ChatGPT. I think it's going to be fascinating to watch that battle out over the next 6 months. Yeah, very interesting.
Maybe we need to do our updated AI separate session again soon, Andy.
I need to. Anyway, sorry.
Cool. Facebook. We reported last month that Facebook have announced that they're going back to the OG and, you know, friends and family and focusing on friends. So now having a friend-only content feed on your Facebook. I haven't spotted this yet. My friends aren't that active on Facebook. They're not active in terms of posting. They are in terms of like engaging and lurking and liking stuff. But you know, it's very different now to how it used to be. But Facebook are intending to try and go back to what it was.
I thought you were about to say my friends aren't that interesting. That's what I thought you were going.
If you're my friend on Facebook, you are.
Yeah.
You are. This is interesting. Going back to, there is a difference between creators and influencers, but, you know, nuance again. Facebook enabling creators, so you already have to be part of their creator program, but now rewarding you for views on your stories. Now, we haven't mentioned this yet because we thought that this would happen between the last session, but I believe that part of this from Meta is their play towards what might be happening with the US on TikTok, whether it stays, whether it goes. They've had another reprieve, trying to attract those creators that are very heavily invested on TikTok over to Meta platforms with some incentives. This one I really like. So Meta across their platforms have announced, Facebook in particular, they are trying to combat spam posts and comments. And what they've said is that some accounts post content with long distracting captions, often with an inordinate amount of hashtags. Andy, we're not talking about hashtags. They are saying that, and their example was like a picture of a dog and a pet, and then a completely different story over the top of it, where you kind of like clickbait or luring people in the wrong direction. So they're trying to move away from that. They're saying like some captions are completely unrelated to the content. Some accounts are really like just hammering in hashtags which are irrelevant, which many of us know that things are moving away from hashtags as well now. So really they're looking out for spam, not just from the original post, and I think this is a good thing, but in the comments as well. We know from LinkedIn that comments should be meaningful and add value. So interesting move that Meta are going to focus on this. How they're going to do it, we don't know, but they say they are. Instagram. We're flying through today. Again, this is their creator marketplace, and search has been something that Instagram have said that they are quite focused on and leaning into. They've had quite a lot of shifts around search, from removing the following of hashtags and how things work on the app, but now again trying to find those creators to work with and surface relevant content. This is a good thing as well for that influencer creator economy opportunity.
Definitely, and that kind of links directly back to this growth of micro influencers, nano influencers, because now we've got some free tools to help us find those folk, create a list of the people that we might want to get involved with, and go from there.
Yeah. This lends itself to what we've been talking about on Instagram of being more private and behind the scenes. So a blend feed is where you can curate reels to share with your friends. So it's a bit of a behind the scenes thing where you can pull some reels together and share that with your friends, which I guess is a little bit like the whole kind of Pinterest board group conversation concept.
Yeah, and it's fascinating to me because it's essentially like if you and I created a blend feed together, it means that I would also be consuming the stuff that shows up in your algorithm and vice versa. So, the way that Instagram have thought about this is, rather than the typical thing that happens whereby most people will DM a reel that they found interesting to their friends. They see this a lot. What they're trying to do is like lean into this and say like, okay, well, let's go ahead and share each other's reels together. So maybe this will have a positive impact on time spent. Potentially could increase the reach of our content. So I think this is a positive. If I look at this from a marketing lens, see it as like a positive thing. It's a way of like helping. This is my cynical view. It's a way of making sure that people stay on Instagram for longer. And it's not like, I'll send or WhatsApp Luan a reel I found interesting, and then you watch it and then go off and do something else. It's a way of keeping us all on feed. But maybe see how it goes.
My head goes to using it for competitor insights. I think this could be really useful for kind of agencies and in-house clients to kind of build your blend feed of what your competitors are up to, which would skew anyone else's data. But that's where my head went with it.
Love that.
I think some people might watch this on double speed. I thought it was fast enough already, but people tend to like double speed on audiobooks and videos. So now you can do that on your reels as well. Edits app. This is the big one. This is the one that they've talked about coming for a long time, haven't they? This is Instagram's version of CapCut from TikTok. I checked the stats this morning and they said that they'd had 7 million downloads of edits in its first week. I personally haven't used it or tried it. So please, if you are watching and you're in the chat and you have tried edits, let us know what you think.
I'm curious as to whether content edited with edits will get some unfair weighting in the algorithm. I wonder, because Instagram would be within their rights to do that. I obviously don't know if this is just pure conjecture, but it's often that CapCut edited content will perform better on TikTok. So who knows? But fascinating. I haven't used this either, but I'm interested if anyone has. And
data, I think, of course, we always love data and being able to get data, and the easier the platforms make it for us, the better. Interesting, on Instagram, it always used to be quite difficult to get a month full of data because it would do 28 days and you'd have to toggle and do all sorts of things, but it has got better. But now I like this Instagram monthly performance summary. I love that they say you crushed it. Here's what they look like. But particular, I think, to note is that they are showing you in this summary, if you can see on the screen, non-followers versus followers. And we've seen this coming up in data more and more. I know some of the clients I work with report on that as well. We know that trial reels go out to non-followers first, and some people are using it for that purpose. So again, it's something to be thinking about. Is that an important metric for you? What does it mean to your business? And will you report on it separately?
Love it.
lockable Instagram posts. I like this. This is like a secret code.
Yeah.
I don't know whether I could be bothered with this personally, but maybe it'd be good for a product launch or a teaser or a competition entry or something like that. So I'm guessing it's going to be an active account already, so that you trust the person and would want to see things. The whole fear of missing out as a psychology theory. Who knows? What do you think?
Yeah, for the same use cases that you just shared, I think this could be interesting. But again, it's predicated on you already having done all the hard graft of generating interest, building a strong brand, all that kind of stuff. Otherwise, just like, who are you? What is it? But yeah, but for significant things, I think there's a good opportunity here.
Yeah. Before we move on to LinkedIn, there's a great question in the chat. Does hiding the amount of like statistics on Instagram have a knock-on effect on performance? My take on this, I mean, performance is quite a big word. I understand that the reason for having the opportunity to hide your likes is related to, I think it was originally a mental health and well-being test of like, what does it mean if you see people are liking it? Does it stimulate social proof and FOMO and anxiety? Does it cause more people to like it when they see that others already like it? There's kind of two sides to the debate on this. I think I recall that Instagram had tested it, but didn't see any obvious significant effects on what this did to an account. But the theory was like, if I saw that a post already had 500 likes, I'm more likely to like it. Because of herd behavior.
Yeah, exactly. I've not seen any studies related to that either. My only anecdotal evidence is that I notice so many people doing this now, even sizable creators. And the kind of inverse of this is that if you see something with few likes, you're less likely to like it. So I think this, if you're maybe a smaller account, I think it possibly has some benefit, because who wants to be the first one to like something for it that has no likes? So I think there's potentially some good value in it, but I don't know. Again,
test it.
Test it on and off. Test it on like doing it for a whole week, doing it without for a whole week, and see how you get on, because audiences' preferences will differ. So we obviously talk high level, generalized, etc. But everything, you always say this, Luan, but like the answer lies in your data and your audience, because everything's so nuanced. So as much as we try and give you as many like guidance and tips as possible, everyone,
it depends.
Social is so unique. Yeah, good question.
LinkedIn. Yeah, great question. LinkedIn. Testing trending topic tag for videos. Not surprising given the focus on video that we've seen. Trending topics across Threads have been doing this and other platforms as well. Is it going to make it easier for us to discover videos rather than just the scroll? So small features being added, copied from other platforms. Are you using the trending topic tags?
It hasn't shown up in my feed yet. So I think LinkedIn are just being very cautious with how they roll stuff like this out. Either way, it's just a clue that they continue to invest more in this, and they're just being very pragmatic about how they do it. So, before, I think they've learned from the past of when they've tried to force new experiences too broadly to people. Hello, LinkedIn stories. So, so on that basis, they're just being very judicious about what they do and where they do it. But the message to take from this is that it's going to continue to become more of a thing, and start thinking now about how we might consider topics for our videos, thinking about our content themes and how we might want to build content around certain topics for LinkedIn for when this does become more of a thing. Yes, back to you.
And again, LinkedIn have been doing this in a few different areas recently, like launching microsites of top tips. They're doing it for creators, they're doing it for videos, giving their users advice on how to use the platform, which is kind of quite surprising that they're coming out with this. The content that I've looked at seems straightforward, seems to be what we've expected. No big surprises, but could be quite good just to check your notes and get some reassurance.
Yeah, agreed. I think for anyone that's on this call, it was like, yeah, okay, fine. No. But I think in LinkedIn doing this, I think the broader kind of macro thing here, and this is why I'm kind of interested in this, what LinkedIn are doing here is they recognize that the creator economy on LinkedIn is becoming more of a thing. And but we already know, we know this data that 99% of people don't post on LinkedIn. They just view and scroll. LinkedIn needs to mobilize that group that just passively consume and want them to create, because then they'll spend more time on a platform on all that good stuff. So I think this again leans into that broader ecosystem of creator economy, micro nano influencers, all that kind of thing. And LinkedIn, it's nice to see LinkedIn recognizing that and supporting people, even though that for us friendly people on this call, this is all kind of like, yeah, run of the mill stuff that we all know. I think broadly, this is interesting because more good quality creators on LinkedIn means more people that we can potentially work with and partner with to drive our business forward. It's the macro view.
This, coming back to the premium company pages, this is a new addition to the premium company pages, that this week you can now invite other people to follow your company page by looking at who follows other pages. So I think the idea is here to go onto your competitor's page and invite people following your competitors' pages to follow yours. I thought this was really interesting, but then Andy, I saw when you posted it on your video, there was some feedback in the comments of like, I wouldn't want a company page I don't know to be following me, and found it a little bit icky from a user point of view, but also from a brand point of view to be doing this. So I kind of like the opportunity, but I kind of saw that as quite an interesting view take on it as well.
That was an interesting comment. I guess then it gets overruled by my growth mentality. I'm like, yes, get it out. Yeah, I do. And I think this links back really closely to what you were just talking about. Well, what you started the conversation talking about, and how potentially it's the growth of the premium company pages that have really helped those huge accounts on LinkedIn, huge company pages, continue to grow. So it now starts to become quite a lot of value here, but also a lot of feedback from that similar post that you referenced, Luan, is that a lot of feedback was like $99 is too expensive. But I guess that all depends on how much you weight the importance of your presence on LinkedIn. $99 feels like a bargain to me if it's delivering great results and you can get in front of the target audience. And that, sorry for the long narrative, but like that is like LinkedIn's superpower. You can't do this on any other platform. You can't say, I want to get in front of these people, please. So I think like, it's an interesting mentality when you're like, oh, that 99 is expensive. You know, it seems incredibly cheap to drive exposure with a target audience, because, you know, running an ad on LinkedIn, for example, you know.
Yeah, what else can you do for $99?
Correct. Yeah. So yeah, it feels powerful to me.
Yeah.
Was there anything else that you want to round out on LinkedIn with before we move on over to the other networks, Luan?
I don't think so. I think it is interesting, the shift on company pages and those stats that we've looked at. And, you know, I'm with you that I've always kind of said company pages is not where it's really at. It's all about individuals. But I think it in part relates to how advertising as well can take content from personal profiles and promote it on a company page, thought leader and newsletter. So I think, you know, the kind of features, it feels like maybe personal profiles and pages are coming together a little bit more, rather than being seen as the page sits here, doesn't really do that much, but we need to be doing something. Profiles are all the way over here. I feel like it's just a way of tying things together better. And I like that.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Right, let's round up some other updates and let's get you out of here ahead of time. So TikTok, alt text to photo posts is important. We understand what alt text is all about. So now we can improve accessibility on TikTok. Threads, interest to threads profiles. I think this is quite useful. I think it's very useful actually. So you can define your topics of interest, which will also aid the discovery of your profiles. So I very much recommend that as an action if threads is your jam. Ads is also coming to threads. So if you started to notice and you experiment with threads, you start to see some of your potential target audience beginning to appear on threads. The growth of threads has kind of tapered off a little bit, but it's still about somewhere between 320 and 350 million users. So it's still big. But if you've spent some time on Threads and figured out actually where your audiences are, and it's a good place for you, then we now have an opportunity to drive direct conversion as well with ads. So that's now available to everyone. They've been testing it for a little while. YouTube, bit of a nerdy one here, so sorry for the wordy slide. It's not very exciting to look at. With YouTube views, just a note of caution on shorts views in particular. So a shorts view will now count as soon as the video starts to play or replay with no minimum watch time, whereas on most other platforms it's a minimum of 3 seconds. So just note that where you see like a shorts video doing really, really well, and you might think, oh, this is amazing, it's done so well. Pay attention to your engagement rate on that, because it might just be a case that, you know, people have literally just scrolled past it and it surfaced for a split second, but it's still going to count as a view. So a little bit naughty, I think, but we just need to be a bit more pragmatic about this. So hopefully that helps. Either way, YouTube Shorts still very, very powerful though for driving reach. Get ideas for new YouTube content. So here you can look into, I think this is a really cool idea actually, personally. So here, if you're looking at your channel content, you know, for example, that Luan and I published this on YouTube, this long roundup on YouTube. And if we looked at our channel content and looked at the roundup that performed really well, we could then brainstorm that into new video ideas. Probably a bad example because we talk about the same thing each damn week or month rather. Yeah. But if you've got an idea and a concept or something that performed well on YouTube, you can now riff with AI and help you think about and reimagine it in some new ways and new concepts. So I think that's very cool for unlocking creation. You mentioned this earlier. I think you're talking about the same platform.
Yes.
So,
yes.
YouTube have done a deal with repurpose.io, which, as the name suggests, it kind of does what it says on the tin, this platform. You can now use that to repurpose your videos for multiple platforms, as the name suggests. So YouTube are giving you like a 3-month trial about this. So I would search for this if it sounds like something you should do. And as you know, if you've heard me speak before, I'm a huge proponent of like repurposing, especially short form video, because ultimately it's about overall views and watch time rather than engagements and follow counts, etc. So I think there's a lot of opportunity to maximize our bang for buck and repurpose the content that we've created. Video editing is clearly a thing this month as they continue to develop the YouTube Shorts editing experience, which has been a little bit light. But now when you're doing YouTube Shorts, they make it easier for you to cut, trim, add filters, all that kind of stuff. A couple other things for you. You can now verify your accounts on Blue Sky as well. So now you'll be familiar with this on Twitter. So similar kind of thing. Basically, they're just ripping everything that was good out of Twitter. Shameless copying and pasting. But hey, why not? Finally, because video is everything, Substack, they've released a very, this could be TikTok. It looks exactly the same, but this is in fact Substack. So again, that leans into the fact that people still want to consume video, but oftentimes there is a smaller but growing subset of folk that don't want to just like feed or drink from the fire hose of like the TikTok feed or Instagram Reels feed, where it's just like constant deluge of recommended content. People want to be a bit more pragmatic about who they choose to listen to or hear from. That's the method of Blue Sky. It's the method of Threads. Another method of Substack, where you're more distinctive or more selective with like, hey, I want to follow Luan or whomever else and consume content from that person, right? So if you're looking at building a community with a dedicated set of individuals, then Substack's video feed is pretty useful to use. I probably should use this more, given that I run a Substack newsletter. Yeah, so either way, it came out this month. It's so good. When I do these things, I remind myself of things I need to do. So basically, this is a nice way of saying that if you don't do all of these things or any of these things, don't worry too much, because we're not doing them all either, because we can't do everything or be everywhere. But hopefully this has given you a whole bunch of like inspiration things you could try. And I've just added this summary, Luan, but I've been talking so much. Do you want to
Shall I do it? Yeah, I've just had one eye on the chat while we were doing this. So I know there's unanswered questions. We will come to them at the end, as someone has suggested in there. We have to double screen to see the chat from the tools that we're using, but I will come to that in a second. But we have talked a lot about LinkedIn. We are both advocates of LinkedIn. However, it's showing loads of opportunity right now in terms of growth, new tools for personal pages, advertising, and company pages as well. It is, you know, our heartland is B2B. It's why we host an annual B2B event. It's about B2B creator economy now, potential influencers, and I think that's a really good thing. It's something that I'm researching, how B2B does tend to fall behind B2C, but it's starting to happen, which is great across these different platforms. Lots of video, lots of choice for video editing. There's no doubt that video is popular, not just from YouTube, but on the other platforms as well. And the OG YouTube, which has just celebrated its 20th birthday, fun fact, does still dominate despite the growth of TikTok and Reels.
All right, questions.
Yeah, it's a really interesting. So there's a couple of Adobe questions. So we'll try and answer these live, but Andy, there's a couple of Adobe questions if you can pop in the chat afterwards. We won't do those on the session. But a really interesting question around identifying true likes and friends versus potentially kind of fake followers and friends. So I think it doesn't mention a specific platform. I think there is tools by platform that you could potentially look at in terms of like who's most engaged, who's active. I think one of the challenges is, however, that lurkers are important. Can be the people that buy from you at some point, but don't necessarily publicly or actively engage. For me, when it comes to fake accounts, you might need to run a report or look at them individually, look for verification. So there is a whole range of tools, but if there's a specific requirement around that, let us know and perhaps we can dive into the specifics. What's your take on fakes versus genuines?
This might not be popular, but it's my view anyway. Just my opinion. I'm less bothered about like that micro stuff because that stuff will happen, right? It's social media. You can't control it. It is what it is. As long as when you look at your overall account level metrics, you're looking at demographics, you're looking at industry types. If you're on LinkedIn, all of that demographic and firmographic data is on the platform already. And as long as if that looks about right to you, then you know you're on the right track. Yes, you'll get some nonsense. It is what it is, unfortunately. But broadly, because I'm always thinking like macro, because social media, quite frankly, is an awareness play, and we're thinking about distribution. So that's generally my take on it. I don't tend to fixate on the micro.
I will share something because in a way I do potentially a little bit more. I've got a new hobby, Andy. You know that Adam Missouri doesn't ask me anything every weekend. I've started recording them and transcribing them and putting them onto a blog to round up all of his questions. And I did March. I've got April's ready to go. I do it every Saturday morning and record it and transcribe it. There was a question, because I remember stuff like this. There was one around, do inactive followers or fake followers impact reach? And I'm pretty sure his answer said no. So I'll find that and pop it in the chat. So like you, it's almost like it might be a bit annoying and skew it, but we're not so focused on follower numbers anymore and shouldn't be. If they don't impact our reach and visibility, focus on something else.
Agreed.
Yeah. So I will be sharing the April Ask Me Anything roundup in the next couple of days when I've done it. So hopefully that helped. We just try and fly through all of our slides first. We did it again. Thank you for watching. If you've watched us live, you've watched a recording, we do this every month. The slides are available. We will keep an eye on the LinkedIn event in the chat. If you think of anything afterwards, you can DM us. You can see us live in London on the 20th and 22nd of May, and we will be back at the end of the month with another online version of this.
Love it. And I'll head off into the chat to answer those unanswered ones now. But yes, thank you so much for spending 55 minutes of your very sunny Thursday with us, and see you next month.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.